National Media Literacy Week.
Yes, the National News Literacy Week is being sponsored by the News Literacy Project, and the EW Scripps Company. We'll focus on this slide a little bit. Is the main longtime U.S.-based news company that's behind this, along with that other News Literacy Project, that organization. It just concluded today, February 7th. It's been going since February 3rd. This is the 6th annual, presented by the Literacy Project, the EW Scripps Company, and USA Today. It provides educators with resources to weed out misinfo and disinfo. And the DC-based nonprofit News Literacy Project, which started in 2008, is funded. And at first, I didn't see this. I thought at first maybe this looked a little more innocent or a little more on the level, but I did a little bit of digging. And that Literacy Project is funded by, among others, the Carnegie Corporation of New York, the Henry Luce Foundation, which is Time Life, News Corp, which is Murdoch, Hearst Foundations, New York Times, Bloomberg Philanthropies, that needs no explanation, the Crown Family Philanthropies, which, among other things, is the defense industry, the Ann B. and Thomas L. Friedman Family Foundation, that's the longtime columnist for the New York Times, Tom Friedman, and dozens of others. So right away, it got sort of a different smell to it as I looked into it. Now, here's a short promo video from the News Literacy Project.
Teens are navigating the most complex information landscape in history. Social media feeds mix rumors, memes, and influencer marketing in with news, opinion, and entertainment. It's no wonder young people don't know how to separate fact from fiction. News literacy education can help.
Fabricated content is misinformation that is designed to deceive you into thinking that it's real.
Find out how at newsliteracyweek.org.
One thing that strikes me in that video, before we look at the next slide briefly, is that they talk about social media being the sole culprit of the problem, and that it mixes entertainment with news. And the whole thing is very confusing. That is absolutely true, and even more so of television itself. In fact, the Scripps Howard Company, or EW Scripps as it's sometimes called, boasts about the fact that it owns both entertainment and news media assets. And then they attack social media as being a problem for pushing forth those same things, news and entertainment, and confusing things. So therefore, they're really targeting the young people and the population in general with their version of what news really is and what it isn't in this crusade. Now, we'll look at this next slide. Some of the educational elements that are being put before the kids mainly are, for instance, dangerous, offensive, and malicious content could include discriminatory language, unverified pseudoscience. Think about vaccines in that regard. Content that promotes violence or coverage that, as the Society Professional Journalist Code of Ethics states, panders to lurid curiosity. And then lack of balance, consistently focusing on one angle or side of a legitimate debate or controversy while ignoring or distorting other perspectives. Now, that's very ironic that this would be in the News Literacy Project's content for reasons that we'll see in just a moment. Let's move on from there. This is just a little background. The EW Scripps Company, also known as Scripps, is an American broadcasting company. It goes all the way back to 1878. It started as a chain of daily newspapers. It's headquartered at the Scripps Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, for the record. It started in the newspaper business, expanded into radio and TV, but it sold off its newspaper holdings in 2014 and exited radio fairly recently in 2018. So it's strictly television now. The Scripps Howard Fund gets into journalism education, this so-called childhood literacy they're talking about. The Scripps Howard Foundation has similar aims. And early Scripps newspaper chain decisions, by the way, they included not using the Associated Press wire service, and Scripps literally created United Press International, claiming Associated Press was just for the plutocrats. In fact, UPI wasn't really much better than AP in the long run. But the reason I mentioned the part in there about they want people to look out for news outlets that focus only on one angle to the exclusion of other angles, that's really ironic, because as I did a little bit more digging, I came across the Howard Center, and that's based at Arizona State University. And the Howard Center is made possible by the Scripps Howard Foundation. And they did, their investigative journalism unit did a hit piece on Richard Mack's Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And when I watched the 9-minute news video that came out of their investigation with Richard Mack, it was absolutely one-sided, that Richard Mack was an irredeemable right-wing conspiracy theorist, that the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association was completely wrong in its assumption that there are limits on federal power. The news broadcast was basically saying there are no real inherent limits on federal power at all. And who are sheriffs to say that there should be such limits? And so there was a lot of hypocrisy there, to say the least. So this is yet another salvo from the mass media cartel guys, where they're trying to tell us what to watch, what not to watch, and saying that they're our saviors, that we need only look to them for guidance. But meanwhile, as this next slide shows, isn't it even more ironic that Scripps News is shutting down its 24/7 broadcast channel? That's the TV part that remains, citing financial challenges. And that's the over-the-air broadcast channel. It's terrestrial. And there's a couple of hundred layoffs, et cetera, et cetera. And on the last slide, it kind of drives the point all the way home. This is from an earlier presentation I did on UK Column last fall. Meanwhile, Americans' trust in the media in general remains at a trend low. And in fact, the media's trust, the trust in the media got even lower than Congress. Now imagine what that would require to have less trust than Congress. So this is a good accent piece to U.S. aid basically being another version of BBC Media Action, and them claiming that state-run media is a bad thing, when in fact we're finding out that many media are in fact state-run, even though they claim not to be. So it's just further proof that people need news outlets like UK Column to really create a new news ecosystem that's on the level. And it's good news in a broad sense, because it's just so obvious that they're exposing themselves for the frauds that they are.
Thank you, Mark. Let's come back to the UK.